Hello, hi there, and welcome to our Australian Market Update P2P Live. My name is 𝗲𝘅𝗽𝗲𝗰𝗁𝗲. I'm the Managing Director for People to People here in Sydney, and very thankful for you watching along today as we go through generally an update around what's happening in the jobs and employment market around Australia. So we're live on a whole range of different social platforms, and so if you have any questions as we're going along that you would like to ask, please pop them in and I'll try my best to get to them as we go along. So what's on the agenda for today? So the focus is, we've got a topic around AI today. So navigating the future of AI in the workplace. I know that is something that is very, very topical for a lot of people. So how is it expected to impact the world of work in 2025? And we are joined, very pleased to be joined today by human-centered AI keynote speaker and educator on future of work with AI, Fiona Wilhelm, and she will discuss with us the benefits and risks that your business may face when implementing AI throughout your organisation, and the impact that employers can expect it to have throughout 2025 and obviously beyond that. So that's our guest speaker and key topic for today. As always, some of the other areas that we'll cover is our stat of the week. So the unemployment rate has just been released fairly recently, so I'll take you through that and what the implications of that are in the labour market. We have jobs that we need filled across Australia, as well as in our other locations in New Zealand and the UK. So some of those are to be filled as early as Monday, so make sure I share those with you. And then, as always, we really welcome your feedback and insights through our social media poll. We've got the results from last week, and we'll pose another question to you this week around burnout as we get towards the end of the year. So that's the plan of attack for today. Thank you again for joining us, and we might get into it with our stat of the week. So the unemployment rate in Australia has been released. So the September number has come out at 4.1%. And you can see, if you just look on the graph there, that's been holding relatively steady throughout this calendar year. It was in line with the revised expectation from August. So it really does indicate that the labour market is relatively stable, despite, I know there's some unstable things happening around the world and the economy, but the labour market is holding relatively steady, and 4.1 is, I think, almost exactly the rate that it was at the beginning of the year. It's had a couple of fluctuations in that time. A few other things to note, and it's not on the screen there, but I thought would be interesting to share. There is record participation rate. So the participation rate, which is essentially people who want to be in the workforce, that hit a record high of 67.2%. And that has been driven significantly by an increase. So that's an increase of 64,000 people in work. So that really does indicate that there's still a strong job market demand, and there's very high workforce engagement, with close to 70% of the population wanting to be in employment. The other thing that's interesting is employment growth is now outpacing population growth. So employment has risen 3.1% over the last year, but the civilian population growth is 2.5%. So that employment to population ratio is now at 64.4%. Another interesting piece of data is that there's been a decline in underemployment and underutilisation. So some of the data that we've seen come through in recent years has been that the employment rate has been holding at a particular level, but there's actually been a fairly high level of underemployment or underutilisation, where people are just not getting as much work as they want, and that has declined. So that has fallen to 6.3%, which is below where it was last year. And then the final thing I thought I'd call out from this set of data is that there has been an increase in hours worked. So those two things really married together around the decline in underemployment and underutilisation and the increase in hours worked. So monthly hours rose by 0.3%. And there was, interestingly, it was quite a different story, males versus females. So amongst the male working population, it was a 0.7% increase, literally month on month in terms of hours worked as well, whereas for women it declined slightly. So that gives you a bit of a snapshot of what's happening in the Australian labour market. We might move now to our next section around some of the jobs that we are working on. So as I said, we've got jobs that need to be filled quickly. Some of them are temporary positions, including the one that is on the screen there at the moment. So this is based in Macquarie Park in Sydney. It's an office manager position. Aidan Boast in our team here is the relevant contact. You can see some of the responsibilities there, looking at $50 per hour on a temporary basis. So if you've got that experience, you know someone who's got that kind of experience looking for work, please reach out to Aidan. We're also looking in Melbourne for a legal assistant. So this is a permanent position that the team is working on. There, the contact is Crystal in our Melbourne team. A permanent role, therefore paying a permanent salary of around that $85,000 to $90,000, and you can see some of the responsibilities and experience that's required there. And then I think the final role that that's it for the roles in Australia, I should say. There's lots of others, by the way. If you jump onto our website or speak to our team, you'll see lots of those. But I do want to do a bit of a shout out to our international colleagues. So we have offices in New Zealand. We also have offices in the UK, and the team there are looking to fill the roles that you can see on screen there. So it's a family finance solicitor in London, a showroom sales manager in London, and we've got an accounting clerk role in New Zealand. So if you're considering going to do a working holiday, potentially in one of those locations, reach out to the People to People or Frog recruitment team. That's our brand in New Zealand. Or equally, if you know someone who might be living in those places and is looking for work, either permanently or on a temporary basis, the People to People team can help you. So we're joined by Fiona Wilhelm. As I said, thank you very much for joining us today, Fiona. Nice to be with you.
Pleasure.
So as I said,
what a
Fiona
great update too.
Sorry?
What a great update too. Very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Look, I think it's important just to give a little bit of context and get that perspective. Everyone naturally lives in their own world and has that kind of direct experience. But yeah, thank you for that feedback. So we wanted to talk to you though about the world of AI. So I know this is an area that you have expertise in. It's definitely an area that is impacting workplaces and the world of work. So really wanted to get your thoughts. And the first question that I wanted to ask of you, and I was quite astounded by some of these numbers. So it was estimated by the World Economic Forum that 97 million jobs will be displaced by AI, but 93 million jobs will be created by 2030. So, obviously a really big impact on both sides of the equation there. What do you think? So with, I guess, more and more workplaces beginning to lead, AI is becoming more part of their planning. In your experience, what do you see as some of the key pitfalls, I guess, that businesses fall into when they're implementing AI or they're considering how that works within their business? Is there any sort of key takeaways around areas to avoid?
Absolutely. Now, I've been lucky enough to be involved in a rollout to around 10,000 people in a large firm. So I kind of know intimately some of these things. But one of the things I think that people overlook is they think that, it's perfection over progress. And I think that having a lack of clear strategy or any kind of roadmap makes it really hard, not only to sort of know where true north is and what should we all be doing. There's a real loss of productivity if you don't have some sort of roadmap. And, that can change, but not having any sense of direction and wondering, waiting until you get it perfect before you put anything in place, I think it is a really sort of bad blind spot. There's also a couple of other things that you need to be looking at. One is a big blind spot for some companies, especially ones that have a lot of data. They have sort of insufficient data quality. So if you imagine that, AI is a bit like a toddler and that you have to train it, you need a hell of a lot of data to do that. So if it's not cleansed or, in a good position, then it's going to be very, very hard for you to harness, I suppose, the power of artificial intelligence. And probably thirdly, inadequate training for staff of onboarding them to play with these tools and have, because you can use artificial intelligence to help your employees do their job too and upskill at the same time, which is the fantastic thing about it.
No, it's a whole, it's obviously it's your area of expertise. I'm just an interested kind of observer. I mean, there's so many different elements to it, and we're all learning as we go, for sure. So what do you think are some of the biggest changes, and I'm sure it varies around industries and the different types of workplaces, but some of the biggest changes that AI is bringing or will bring around workplaces, and if there's any risks associated with those changes that you could share?
Yeah, so I think that the cost of doing nothing is super dangerous. I sort of take people in my keynotes on a journey of sort of 3 different futures. One is doing absolutely nothing means that people will do it anyway. And the risk that has is that people will use ChatGPT on their personal computers. So if you don't bring them any tools or you don't allow them to play with, company approved tools, they will find a way. It's like water, it always finds a way through, right? The human brain loves doing things more easily. Why wouldn't we? It is survival of the fittest at this stage. Yeah, there's a real need, I think, to acknowledge what tools do we have, and really to crowdsource a lot of the pain points. So if you look at a lot of the work that we had today, which, I put in the bucket of, busy work or donkey work, if you look at some of the accountants that I've been working with at the moment in advisory, it's like their job is going to change from being something like where they're doing a lot of pivot tables and spreadsheets into being much more of a strategic, proactive advisor for their clients. So that's really, if they really need to have, some sense of, tools to do that work and familiarity with those tools, because this change is something that we're all going to have to navigate.
So putting your head in the sand and sort of saying, we just won't do anything, that's almost one of the, that's probably the riskiest thing to do, is just to do nothing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Businesses can be at different stages of, I guess, evolution and development around this stuff. So if there's a business owner or a leader who's really just starting to kind of go down the path of considering how AI can complement their workplace and how it can add some value, where should they start? I know that's probably a big question, but is there any areas particularly around where they should either get educated or start to do some experimenting to start to implement it into their workplace?
I sort of think there's 2 areas that will kind of help them to understand where they should focus. So one of those would be I suppose, as I said before, like crowdfunding, crowdsourcing of the pain points in the business. So what are the things across our whole chain of sort of value or our employee experience that are actually creating a lot of roadblocks and making people stay late and, taking people away from their families, quite honestly. What are some of those things that are just so time consuming? If you could remove some of those and get people to focus a bit more on the strategic work, I think you'll end up with a happier workforce, because in the meantime, if you're not going to focus on doing anything and you're just going to wait and see what everybody else does, that seems to be a bit of a common theme across my decades of experience with any kind of disruptive technology. Everybody looks to the left, looks to the right, and forgets to do anything themselves. So looking after your people at this stage, very important. Getting them involved and getting them engaged in the sort of crowdsourcing of the pain points is one, but also then looking at some of the basic data and things. So who's looking after your data inside of that company? What are some of the security risks that you're going to be facing if that suddenly finds its way through things like OpenAI into the public domain? What is your plan?
Yeah. Okay. And I think that would maybe tie into what you said about the quality of the data as well, so that then you're implementing something that's going to be effective, and you're not training the toddler with ineffective information.
That's right.
That's wonderful. Could you tell us, I know your own business, Human-Centered AI, can you just tell us a little bit more about that, but particularly how that could help if there's someone watching who thinks, I need a bit of advice, or I need some help with this, how that could...
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that I notice, and it happens, in any kind of disruption that we face as humans, our brain goes to, oh my goodness, whatever this, threat or perceived threat that we're facing into, which might, have an effect on my survival. There's a bit of neuroscience behind it. If we look at Y2K, what everyone thought was going to happen and what actually happened. Personal computers, or computers in the workplace, what people thought about, and they would not let go of that paper. Whereas, what actually happened was it became an enabler for us. So, big scary threats are very a very neuroscience based sort of concept. So I think actually looking at, let's take the technology from at the centre and put the human at the centre. The technology is an enabler. The human is the thing that we need to enable. We don't put the technology at the centre. We really need to kind of flip these things around. So from a very basic sense, that's what I do. I start with employees, I start with humans, I start with leaders. Those are the people. Let's find out what their challenges are. What are their jobs to get done? And what's the right technology to enable them with? Because plugging artificial intelligence in is not, randomly is not the answer. We really need to get more of a sense of what are the things that we're trying to achieve, what is our goal, and look a bit more strategically about that journey.
Yeah, okay. Which I'm sure would then overcome or help to overcome some of those emotional or fear type responses if it is starting with the human and working.
That's right. Yeah. And I think we've all played with, I think we need to sort of normalize it a bit more too. We've had Google and Siri for quite some time. Ever since the iPhone could be opened up with facial recognition, that's a form of artificial intelligence. We just need to realize we've had this in our lives, and it's been around since like 1957. So we need to sort of have a bit of a reset on, it doesn't have to be this kind of horror story that our brain is telling us. It can be something else if we just decide to embrace the idea that just to give it a try.
Yeah. Oh, that's been really, really interesting. I can see we've got your details up on the screen there. So if people are watching and they'd like to get some info, I'm sure you'd be happy for them to reach out to you. And then equally, if anyone, if very happy for people to talk to us, and we can.
I have quite a broad ranging, I guess services, everything from keynote speaking on sort of AI 101, help me understand what that does, to really working with leaders and teams in a workshop situation, online or in person. And I also speak at schools as well. So it's been a very busy time.
No doubt. Yeah, and I'm sure you're not going to slow down anytime soon, I wouldn't think, in this space. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been really insightful, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so as always, we are very interested to hear from you all around various topical questions and things happening in the market. So the question that we put out last week is, if you were promoted without a salary increase, what would make it feel more worthwhile to you? And fairly resoundingly, it was around skills and career development. So people, if you could see that that's actually going to increase your skill level and there'll be some opportunity for longer term development, that would rate the highest. Increased flexibility and benefits came in second, and then I guess the promise of a future pay rise coming was the third one there. So this week we would like to know from you if you're more burnt out and stressed at work now than at the beginning of the year. It is, we're getting increasingly close to Christmas. We're into November already. So are you more burnt out and stressed at work now than at the beginning of the year? Or have you been able to get wonderful balance and find a way to stay nice and calm as we get towards the end of the year? So thank you again for joining us today. All of our content is available. You can go onto our website. You can look at any of our social channels. I'm very happy to speak to anyone directly if you've got any questions or comments. Website's on the screen there and our phone number. So thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week, but for now, have a great weekend.